Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Turning Two with Booney. I'm Rich Herrera. As spring training is off and running from the Infinity Sports Network, that, of course, is Bret Boone. Booney, happy beginning of the next calendar year of our lives. We'll be watching baseball on a daily basis. How are you?
Hey, Rich, do we have an action-packed show today, or are we just going to look for things?
I have no idea what we're talking about today. To be quite candid with you, I have no idea where this podcast is going, and I think that's when we do the best,
I
when we're
I, I can
completely unscripted.
I can tell. I can tell by your demeanor today. Like you said, sometimes it's a good one. We finish and we go, we had nothing to talk about, but that was productive. I like
Right.
it.
Well,
Your
okay, so
hat's your
let
hat
me
the hat you're wearing it's not bad. It's just I didn't know what it was. I had no idea that was a Rays hat. No clue.
for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, or you'll see this clip, I'm wearing a Tampa Bay Rays, what is this? 2023 spring training lid.
It
I
actually
grabbed
looks
it
pretty.
because, yeah,
I don't
grabbed it,
often
put it
say
on.
that. Yeah, I don't often say this. It actually it looks pretty good on you.
Yeah.
I gotta say. I gotta say. All right,
So,
whatever. Chit chat.
well, no, we can chit chat all you want. We've got lots to get to, though, but I will tell you this, Bret Boone. Um, my first item that I want to talk about in the program today is I think every pitcher in Major League Baseball needs to just come out and admit, after watching the first week of spring training, none of them know what the strike zone is, Bret.
It is. I'll tell you. It is. It's an interesting thing because the technology has gotten so much. We've gotten so much more technology. It's more technical. Okay, example. Before this era where we had an actual strike zone, something that the umpires train on. In my day, it wasn't that. We all, as players, hitters, pitchers, didn't matter, umpires, we all had an understanding of where the strike zone was, around what it was. I never went into a seminar or a cage where they had a computer set up and they digitally told you exactly what the strike zone. It's just kind of an idea. We kind of know what the strike zone is, and you kind of go with it depending on the umpire. Different umpires. The human element had different strike zones, and there was nothing in stone. There was no set strike zone. Nowadays, there is, from what I understand, that the
Wait a
the
second, that
the
doesn't
umpire.
make any sense. Wait a minute, deconstruct that for me. That doesn't make any sense. You go in, you knew what
I'm
your
trying to
strike
be as
zone
lame.
was by what?
I'm trying to be as layman as I can here. All right.
Yeah, you're being too
Yeah.
lame.
And okay, there is no strike zone for a player, for a hitter, for a pitcher that is defined like I know exactly what the strike zone is. It's 6.4 inches from this point on the plate. It's just kind of it's a feel thing. You know what a strike is, you know what a good pitch is just by your eyeballs. That's how we lived. The umpires, I don't know whether they trained on an actual strike zone that was defined by
No, this is in your
feet,
day
centimeter. This
before.
is in my this is in the early 2000s. We're not
Okay,
we're
is
saying
this
my day. It's not
before or
like it's
after strike zone?
1942.
No, but is this before or after the ABS system, strike man?
This is before, after. We never trained. We never knew
Okay,
exactly what defined the strike zone, except for what the umpires at the big league level deemed the strike zone was, and not only the strike zone, but umpire by umpire what their strike zone was. I've talked about this at length before. It was the way we went about our business was everybody has an understanding what a strike zone is. Some umpires were low ball umpires, some were high ball, some gave off the plate away, some gave off the plate in, and I'm talking inches. But it was to be
wait a minute.
determined in the
Stop for a
first
second.
inning or
Stop.
two.
Stop
Okay.
for a second. We're talking the matter of inches. We're talking about a
Right.
quarter of a baseball, half a baseball. We're not talking about a
Correct.
foot off the plate. We're not talking six inches off the plate. We're talking
Correct.
within the diameter of a baseball.
Correct. And that was all established probably within the first full inning when you got to have one inning on defense, one inning offensively. That's why back in the day it was so important. Not only make this guy throw strikes, but let's see what he's got. Let's see if that leadoff hitter can get to a 4, 5, 6, 7 pitch at bat. We can see all the pitchers' pitches, but also we're going to find out, what is the umpire today calling? Is he tend to call the low ball, high ball, inside corner, outside corner? And you can get feedback not only by watching, but by the interaction with your teammate when he came in. So that first inning, it was kind of established. And
Okay, stop for a second.
umpires stuck with what they established.
Okay. If Rich Herrera is behind the plate in May, and you went through that whole exercise, and you know what I was going to call at what time, correct? When you saw me in June, did I replicate my strike zone, or did you have to ferret it out that first inning once you saw me a couple months later?
The good ones I knew. Now it's all human element. It's nobody can be precise. That's why I laugh at the level of critique in 2025, because our cameras and our metrics and lasers, and they're computers. They're something that the human being cannot replicate. So everybody is so critical. When these umpires are, as I've said it before, they're as good as they've ever been. But because of the scrutiny on these umpires, they're scrutinized more than they've ever been. The good umpires in April, I know he establishes his zone early, and he is consistent as the best in the world can possibly be. His zone is going to be very similar in June. The guys have tendencies, and he's going to establish his zone in June, and he's going to stick with that zone. Like I said, we're talking inches. We're talking half a inches at times. And it's always been the mindset of a hitter is, when you get 2 strikes, what do? We don't let this umpire take the bat out of our hands. The good ones were as good as could be. And the bad ones, even though they're the worst ones at the highest level, big league level, they're still bad. And they'll still miss a pitch by 3 inches, and you'll look at them and kind of go, Angel Hernandez had a terrible rap. He retired recently. And I have to agree. Angel Hernandez, from big league standards, was horrible. What made him horrible? He wasn't consistent. He didn't establish a zone, stick with the zone. He would establish his zone in the first inning, and then in the 5th inning, he might establish a whole new zone, which makes it, all we want is consistency. We want to know what the strike zone is. We might not agree with it. Hey, for my particular swing, that pitch is up and you call it up. You're a high ball umpire. I don't like that personally, but I know what the rules are going in. Does that make sense? And the guys that weren't good, weren't considered high on our list, were the guys that would change that zone. All of a sudden, a pitch up and away is a strike, and then a pitch down and in, a slider at my back foot, he calls that a strike too. And then 5 innings later, the up and away strike that was a strike 3 innings ago is now a ball. Those are the guys that are considered low on the totem pole. That being said, it's still the big league level, but you're the worst of the best.
That's like saying you're the worst Victoria's Secret supermodel.
Yeah, and man, usually on these questions, I don't have to work as hard as I just worked.
But we're
trying to explain it as simple
you are.
As
you're
I
doing
can.
great.
Yeah.
No, but you are.
I'm having a tough time.
When you're saying you're the worst umpire ever, that means that you're the worst Victoria's Secret supermodel, who would be the most gorgeous person that most of us would ever meet in our entire lives.
Right. I mean, that's what I used to laugh when I retired and I was coaching, travel ball, and parents, especially in the stands, would sit there and be so critical of these umpires at the 13U level. And they'd be yelling at him, "Oh, you're the worst," and this and that. And I just would kind of, if I had a moment or I had a relationship with a parent, I'd say, "What do you expect?" And she's like, "Well, he's a terrible." I said, "There's guys at the big league level that I consider not very good, and they're the best in the world." I said, "And then break it down. Go to AAA. They're not even as good as the big league guys.
The big
AA, single A, then go to college baseball. Division I are the best college where supposedly the best college umpires are at Division I, then 2, then 3. Let's go to the JCs. Now let's go from there to the high school varsity level, and then let's go to JV and freshman, and then let's go to 13U. What do you expect? These guys are making $50 a game.
Yep.
Giving it their best, but they are far from the elite umpires in the world. They're probably really a step up from the parents sitting in the stands critiquing this guy as far as skill level.
Oh, no, I would say that they're much better than somebody, and I've seen it before in Little League games where umpire doesn't show and a dad has to get behind the plate. And if they're brave enough to get behind the plate, that's one thing. Most of them will stand behind the pitcher and try to call balls and strikes. It's not easy to do.
It's hard to do. It's
Yeah.
hard to do.
And I know this because, again, you're going to get mad at me, but I'll bring it up. I've been to umpire school, so I understand the rudimentary training.
Yeah.
Let me throw one more thing out there. Back in your day when you broke in, that was before Sandy Alderson got a hold of the umpire staff when he worked in Major League Baseball. He had the job overseeing on-field action, and he's the one who said, we don't need to have a scouting report for the umpires. We need a universal strike zone. But back in the day before that, Bret, would you find the umpires would expand and contract the zone if it was getaway day to try to hurry the game along?
Absolutely.
To explain to fans how that happened, what happened, what everybody's understanding was, and when they would expand and then contract the zone to make it legit.
It was exactly what you think. Let's say we're in New York and it's a Sunday day game. It's been a long day. Now, what you need to realize is, first of all, as a player, we travel by charter. Our plane is waiting for us. If the game goes 17 innings, our plane takes off when we get there. But the umpires don't travel like that. They might have a Monday assignment. They've got a Sunday day game in New York, and maybe Monday they need to be in Kansas City. Well, the last flight out of LaGuardia leaves at 8 o'clock. And this afternoon game's going long. And back then, before the new rules for extra innings, we might be in the 14th inning. These guys know that the last plane leaves at, so it's going to be an overnight. They're going to have to leave at 6 a.m. in the morning. Their planes, their travel plans are changing. So I think the human element says we got to get this game over with. Now, as a hitter, I hated it. Because I knew, or in a blowout game, it's 15-2. Hey,
that's more like it. Yeah,
I had umpires tell me, "Hey, Booney, the zone's going to get bigger." I still don't like it.
Swing away, buddy.
If it's spring training, that's one thing. I could care less. This thing doesn't go on the back of my bubblegum card. But I'm still grinding here, and this matters to me. Every at bat matters to me. So don't tell me you're going to open the zone because it's 15-2. This isn't a little league game. This is consequential. It's consequential for that pitcher and for me. I might have arbitration this year. This is a big at bat. I got the bases loaded, and I'm not going to be all right with you because it's an out of control game calling a ball 6 inches off the plate for this pitcher that doesn't deserve it. So I never was in lockstep with that. I understood, hey, we got to move it along. I understand that in spring training. Let's move it along. Let's get this going. That's fine. There's no consequences. There's not. Those aren't statistics that I'm going to be judged upon. But these, in a big league game, you play it like a big league game to the end.
You might not have liked it.
I hated it.
You might have hated it, but you understood it was also part of the way that the game works. And they would say, "Hey, Booney, you know what? It's 15-1. It's a third inning. Let's move this thing along." And
it wasn't like I was caught off guard.
Right.
I mean, they would tell you as a hitter, Hey,
buddy, come on.
The zone's going to get bigger. All right,
let's go.
The pitcher in the game at the time, he might have got his brains beat in. He probably maybe already gave up 5 runs. So he's already had his beating. So yeah, maybe he's going to get a little cushion here. But that fresh guy coming in out of the bullpen that's got a 5 ERA and he's going to mop up 3 innings and he's got a 6-inch bigger strike zone. Well, I don't want him getting that. He's got a 7 ERA for a reason. Now he's got a 5 because the zone's an extra 6 inches.
Well, you would get it for the overall. I don't want to say health of the game, but game management. Okay,
of course.
So we knew those things would go along, right?
This is me being a selfish son of a bitch hitter.
Yes, So now,
Yes.
and the reason I bring that up, because I know how you'd feel about it. Um, Here's what I'm seeing watching the ABS, the automatic balls and strikes that we're getting during
Oh,
spring training.
ABS. We've already got initials.
We got
I like
we got ABS. They've been using it down in AAA. Now they're using it in spring training.
right.
You know what I've noticed? Pitchers have no idea what the hell the strike zone is, because you're seeing them challenge, you're seeing them stand there and complain, and you're seeing them look at the strike zone, and they want that thing the size of my head, which I wear a size
Right.
8 dome.
Right.
And I don't think pitchers really understand the size of the strike zone, because I think they're being fooled, and you're really seeing them look around to say what is going on, because they're not getting the strike zone that they think they deserve. And it's been fun to watch how certain people in this game that we've seen screaming, yelling, carrying on with umpires really don't understand the size of the strike zone and where it starts and stops. And there's one thing that umpires would tell me all the time is, I wouldn't mind somebody complaining, but what would really get under my skin is that catcher who wanted two different strike zones. He wanted one for his pitcher, and then he wanted one for when he was a hitter. And I think we're starting to see that with some of these pitchers. And I'm not sure people understand the real size of the strike zone now that we're getting a little taste of it with the ABS.
Well, I think, yeah, the catcher's got a conflict. He's a catch 22 because, like you
Right.
said, he's conflicted. He wants it for his pitchers, but he wants that big strike zone when he's hitting. I think you're going to find, and always will find, the hitter's always going to have a better idea what the act. If you show the hitter what the strike zone is, and he trains on that strike zone, he's always going to have a better feel for what's a ball and what's a strike. And it's just, I don't know what it is, being in the box closer to when that call is made. Uh, but the eyeballs, it's just, they're going to be more accurate on what is actually a ball and what is actually a strike. And maybe that strictly has to do with that pitcher being 60 feet away, going arms and legs, not seeing the ball all the way in because
Head
his
not
head
being
might be moving.
still. Right.
Whereas that hitter has the advantage of being in the box and being right there when that actual pitch is called a ball or a strike. So I think you're always, uh, yeah, the hitter's going to be biased, of course. He wants it to be a ball. The pitcher wants it to be a strike. He's going to be biased. But I think if push comes to shove and it comes down to who do you trust in a challenge situation, I think the hitter's always going to have a little bit better of an idea what is actually a strike and what is actually a ball. And
How
maybe I'm
much
biased because I'm a hitter. I
I
don't
was
know.
going to say, how much are you, a self-centered, biased son of a gun, looking out for your own best interest of wanting the strike zone to be the size of a Dixie cup, versus me, who is now assuming he's a pitcher and wants it the size of a barn?
No, the hitters are usually, we're pretty honest with ourselves, and we're pretty right. There's very few times where I'd go back to the tape, I'd replay it, and I was wrong as a hitter. Now, there are times when I know when I'm not swinging good and my left side's leaking out.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I know right then I'm not going to question it because I've been here before and I have enough experience to know when my left side's leaking and I'm bailing on that breaking ball first pitch, my eyes don't see what they think they see. But I
Right.
know when I'm in the zone and I'm not being fooled by pitches and I take a pitch, I can pretty much tell whether that is a strike or that is a ball. The first time I was really kind of taken aback by it was Randy Johnson. He was pounding me inside with two-seam fastballs. So what that means is he'd throw it in off the plate from the left side and bring it back onto the plate, kind of a reverse Maddox.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never seen that from Randy before. I'm used to this power 100 miles an hour, blow you away, and a wipeout slider. But when he started to pitch later in his career and started to throw what we call them front door two-seamers, that was a pitch I've never seen Randy throw before. And by the way, not too many lefties have thrown it, and not too many lefties have the ability to get it in there and get the action they need on it. But I remember Randy punched me out on a fastball in, and my eyes told me right away, probably because I'd never seen that pitch from a lefty at that velocity. There's no way that's a strike. That's a ball inside. And I was adamant arguing with the umpire. I went back to the tape And I watched it, and I was blown away. I said, he got it right. That was a strike. My eyes were completely fooled. So, I don't know if it was that game or the next day when he was out in the field. I told I'd go to the umpire, whoever it was, and I'd say, I just want to apologize. I said, I had never seen that pitch from Randy before. And I'll be damned, that sucker was a strike. So when I was telling you that was in off the plate, I'm wrong, and I apologize. And I would always do that if I was wrong. Um, like I said, the hitter, usually when you see hitters arguing, 9 times out of 10, they usually have a beef and they're correct. Now, there are times, and I explained it earlier, when I wasn't tracking balls, when I was getting fooled on breaking balls and I could feel my side leaking, I wouldn't argue too much. I'd think, man, that ball felt really far away and off the plate. But my internal clock would say, well, you've been here before and you're not seeing the ball good right now, and you were fooled by that pitch. So your eyes probably fooled you. So I probably wouldn't argue in that circumstance, if that
What
makes sense. Long
what's
story
the
short,
No, that's great. I love it. What's the difference between looking at a pitch, watching a pitch, and tracking a pitch with your eyes?
nothing. I don't get these that deep to really make it this deep full, this
But there's
it's
there's a
not that it's not
difference.
that deep. It's like I know what I see. And I know
Okay.
if I'm in good hitting position, and I see that pitch and I'm not fooled by the pitch, I know what's a strike and what's a ball. Now, when like I said, when I flinch for a second, but I was able to lay off it. But it was a breaking ball. I didn't pick up the spin right away. 9 times out of 10, that umpire is right. It just feels like it's an ocean away on the outside corner. But I know I'm going to go check the tape, and it's probably going to be right on the corner. I was wrong, so I won't argue in that situation. But that comes with experience
Do you
too.
keep your head perfectly still when you're tracking the ball out of his hand?
You try to, and that's another
And
thing.
that's the difference, I think, between tracking and looking.
A lot of times when you see guys, you'll see a hitter. He looks great. He's on time. His bat speed is immaculate. It looks good. And a lot of times people will say on a 3-1, 3-0, 2-0 pitch, fastball down the middle, and this hitter comes unglued and he fouls it straight back. And the commentators, oh, how far would that ball have gone? Oh, he just missed that one. Well, as my career went on and I was fouling off a lot of pitches, cookies in the middle of the plate, I'd call them, there was a reason for that. It's because my head was moving ever so slightly. And if you're watching this on YouTube, if your head just moves up and down
Just bobs up and down,
slightly,
just a centimeter.
think how your eyes track that ball. That ball's moving up and down. Now we can't see that in real time, and that's why you barely mishit the ball. That took a while in my career before I realized that, because I felt, how do I keep fouling these cookie pitches off? They're right there, and all your teammates are, man, that's a really good swing. You're all over that thing. Well, when I'm all over it, I don't mishit it and foul it off. I square it up, and it's a double. If I was all over it, yeah, it might look to the naked eye that, wow, I'm really on time and everything's good, but something's amiss. And that's usually my head and moving like this. Nothing that the eye in real time could really pick out. But that's when you get into the video and I'd say, yeah, there's my head. It's going up and down. So yes, that is crucial. And I think you see all the great hitters, uh, watch a Rise, the kid that's won two batting titles, I think back to back. He plays for the Padres now. Watch his head when he hits, how still it is. He doesn't strike out a lot, eh, and that's why he wins batting titles, because he gets a lot of hits. He gets a lot of hits, meaning not missing good pitches, putting them in play and putting them in play with good contact. So that's the long and short of that. But yeah, head movement is definitely a thing that really isn't talked about that much, but crucial.
That's why people need to listen to the Boone podcast. I actually asked you a leading question. I knew the answer. And if we were in a court of law, your lawyer would have said, I object, leading question, because I did lead you there, because there is a difference between looking at a baseball that's coming in from the stands or wherever you are, you're at second base, looking at the baseball coming in and tracking as a hitter or the umpire. So I've learned this I learned this.
Well, you know what I hear about tracking when it's an excuse. Early in spring training, you'll go out and you'll have
Right.
live at bats against probably your starting rotation. And if the wrong guy was in there and it was too early in spring, and I didn't want to, he's getting it up to 90, 92. Well, I've only been in camp for 2 days. So I don't want to go in there and get blown up right now. I don't want to break this bat that I brought out today. I don't want to be embarrassed. So I'd say, I'm just going to track today, guys. And I'd get out there and really like overdo it and follow that ball into the catcher's mitt. Really, what I was doing is saying, oh, look at me. I'm the veteran tracking pitches today. Really, why I was tracking pitches is because I didn't want to swing. I didn't want to get embarrassed. I didn't want to break my bat in half. So that's what I think of tracking. I never tracked pitches because I wanted to track pitches. I tracked pitches because I hated the drill. I wanted to hit off batting practice arms, and I didn't want to get blown up by Randy Johnson day 2 of spring training.
Well, and see, that's a great thing because they don't talk about that on television. Nobody brings that up. You only get that here at the Boone podcast. So for me, tracking pitches, when I went to that school, they actually would have us stand there, and we had these VR goggles on, and we would see the ball coming in, and they would watch our eyeballs to see whether our head was jumpy, whether our head was still, and whether we were actually following the ball with our eyeballs or turning our head to follow the ball. And then once we got behind the plate and we were working, they had a camera that was just laser focused on our eyes, and you could tell whether your eye was following the ball or you were turning your head ever so slightly. And if you were turning your head over so slightly, there was no way you're going to be able to call balls and strikes. Those little intricacies that I think we're going to find out about now that we have the automatic balls and strikes, and we see the pitchers really think the strike zone is a lot bigger than it is. Hitters think it's a lot smaller than it really is. And I think we'll finally get to see the umpires weren't all that bad. And again, Bret, you said the horrible umpire, the Angel Hernandez, is the most amazing, gorgeous, smartest, intellectually challenging, compelling, talented Victoria's Secret supermodel that you'll ever meet in your life. She's just not the greatest supermodel of all time.
Right, horrible. And I don't want to point out Angel. I don't have a personal beef or
No,
vendetta with Angel. There's a lot of guys that were just as bad and worse that we haven't named. Angel's just kind of the easy go-to
Angel's the easy one, right?
because everybody knows who he is.
But would you agree or disagree with me that the worst umpire that we hate and he gets roasted on television
Sure.
is if I put them in comparison to supermodels, they'd be the most beautiful woman you've ever seen in your life, and they're the worst of the supermodels. So they're supermodels,
Well, let's
just
just
not
say
the
I
greatest
think
or the best.
right. I just think it's the golf term. It's better than most.
Better than most. And I think now we're really going to see it with the how to make balls strike. Would you
I'm
want to
interested though,
play?
Rich. I'm interested in this though. How do you, because I'm not around, I'm not on the ground, I'm not in the clubhouse. How do you train on what the actual strike zone is? How do you train as a hitter? Is there something in the cage that beeps when it's a strike, beeps when it's a ball? How do pitchers train to know exactly? So it's the eye test. What my eye tells me a ball and a strike is. Is there actually a training uh, app? How do they do it? Because we didn't have anything like that. We just kind of knew what a ball and what a strike was.
That's a great question. I'm sure somebody's going to develop that because again, the umpires had these I don't want tutorials, not the right word. They get a disc and it gives you every pitch that you miss, and you have to account for it. So they really know where the
Right.
strike zone is, where they're missing, where their head's in the wrong spot, where they're sitting up too high. Because you just talked about where your head is. I'll tell you this: when you're an umpire back there and they see them get into their stance, there's actually nuances to the stance. I learned this that you're not leaning over and leaning on the catcher. You're actually sitting up, and you need to keep your back up, your chin up, and your shoulders back as if you're sitting in a chair. So you
Yeah.
have a good vantage, so you could see that outside corner because they don't sit up over the top of the umpire like they did in your grandfather's and your dad's day. They sit up on his shoulder because that keeps them from having foul balls that are foul tipped right into their face mask and getting knocked out. So there's a lot of nuances to this. And now we're really going to see how good these ugly Victoria's supermodels really are. So, question, Bret, how would Bret Boone do in the day and age of automatic balls and strikes? Would it make you a better hitter?
Well, I've thought about this a lot. I hate the human element being taken away from the game, but I think with the technology, it's time. Like a lot of things, it's time. Um, and let's just go to a universal, because now, if the computer is to the point where they think it is,
It is.
it's really not. You
Do you
know what you got going in. There's no Angel Hernandez's anymore.
do you
It's
trust the algorithm? Would
we're
you
gonna see.
so no, Bret Boone, generational wealth on the line if you were playing today. You'd make a lot more if you were playing today.
I'd have to make a test run, because a lot of things we'd always used to think about is like on TV. Let's say this guy's got a, now we call it spin rate, but back in the day it was called a great curveball.
Right.
Okay, where it looked
Nerds.
to the naked eye as a ball to cross my path, a ball, but ended up in that white square we see today, a strike, because of the late life that it had. That's what I'm interested in. Where if a great, if an off the chart spin rate nowadays is able to fool the computer. You see what I'm saying? Like
Right.
it's in the strike zone late, but from a hitter's perspective, it got there too late. And that's going to all be, where is that laser? Is it the front of the box? Is it do
Well,
they,
it's
are
it's
they
not
good,
it's not a laser.
are they good enough to get it to where it crossed your path, where your bat would be in the zone? It crossed there as a ball, but landed as a strike. Is that computer good enough? And I think the players are going to give you feedback on how accurate and how good it is. I think what it does, Rich, as a hitter, and yes, to answer your question in the longest form possible, which I've been doing all morning.
Because I'm keeping you off balance today. I love
I
it.
I think it's a good thing, because I don't have to worry about, oh, who's behind the dish today? Oh
Sure.
gosh, not him. And the pitcher at the same time is going, "Ooh, I'm glad it's him, because he's got a huge strike zone." I don't have to worry about that anymore. The
You
pitcher does,
eliminate some of the
right.
clutter in
The
your head.
pitcher doesn't have to worry about that. Back in the day, what we called uh, hitters strike zone, because there's no
Oh, that's
hitters
a pitcher.
strike zone
That's a
anymore.
hitter's umpire.
Right. There's no pitcher strike zones, and there's no hitters strike zones anymore. It's just a strike zone. So we've got the same guy calling balls and strikes, and you took the human element out. Not he never misses one now. He never flinches. He's never not in position. He calls the exact same strike zone every at bat, every pitch, every game for 162. So as a hitter, I know what I'm getting going in. I think I'd like it.
So I have to ask you again, and we've explained it, but we haven't done this in a while. So let me run through. And I'm not as familiar with the current situation, the strike man that they're using now. I was trained under the ZE system, which is 2 systems ago.
Yeah, that's hieroglyphics to me, Rich. The
But
the the Zelo system,
but
whatever.
but basically, well, no. See, this is why I ask you this question, because you're going to put your generational wealth, your future, whatever you want to call it, you're going to put this in the hands of a NASA trained scientist. And the way this works is they track the ball out of his hand, and there is a super duper duper super high speed camera that takes photos of the pitcher releasing the ball coming out of his hand, and it feeds all this information into an algorithm. And with the first, I think it's 10 feet, it measures the spin rate. That's where we get spin rate, velocity, arm angle. And from the ball being released, it processes everything, and it looks at the seams and how quick they're moving and where they're going from uh, photo frame to photo frame. And it feeds it into an algorithm, and then the algorithm, and they stop after about 10 feet, because if I go all the way through, then it's going to be interfered with the swing and it's going to throw everything off in the algorithm. So it measures the first 10 feet of where the ball comes out of his hands, feeds it into an algorithm. That algorithm spits out where the projected path of the ball will be when it goes over the plate. So you talk about a high spin rate, high arm angle, high release point, and then it calculates, all right, if he's throwing from there and he's releasing it and it's moved this far in the first 10 feet, this is how fast it's going. This is the spin rate. Then I can put that on axis A, on an X and a Y axis, and it'll figure out where exactly the ball will end up. So it's all an algorithm. There's not a laser that you hit or anything along the line. It's all in this computer.
Well,
Would you trust that to decide whether you're going to have generational wealth or not?
what does it matter? What does it matter whether I trust? If
I mean,
it's there, it's there.
Right. I mean, but that's what we're doing, is that we're asking people to put our faith in an algorithm.
Well, and I think you're going to have feedback from the players. You're probably already getting feedback in spring training. I know it's early on and there's only been 3 or 4 games, but we'll be able to tell. You'll be able to tell at the end of spring. They're going to be asking the players, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Hey, pretty good. Pitcher's pretty good. Now, I talked about, where do you train on this algorithm? Where do the pitchers train? Is there something that they're doing in the cage that we never did as players? I don't know, but I'll tell you, once you get 20, 30, 40, 50 games under your belt, you're going to know what the strike zone is, hitter and pitcher.
In the minor leaguers, the guys who are just coming into the big leagues will have a better beat on this than a 10-year-old vet.
I don't think this is going to be a big learning curve. I think it's going to be simple. You're going to establish it, and you're going to be having B games. Guys this spring might want to get in more at bats than they're used to getting. But you get 100 at bats in, and whether that could be, some of your at bats could be on field C, field 3 on the backfield in a B game. I think you're going to see guys wanting to get more at bats, just to be able to work on strike zone. What is a strike? What is a ball? Just to get that intel. But I think once they get 100 at bats on the machine, what is a strike? What is a ball? I think guys, hitters, their brains, their feel, and just, I can't explain it. They'll know what a ball and what a strike is and what that computer's calling.
And again, remember, this is just experimental during spring training. Last year, maybe 2 years ago, Major League Baseball, they had to make some adjustments because they had the pitches a little too high, so then they adjusted it back down. So it's all a work in progress. We're not going to see it in the big leagues this year. Maybe we see it next year, but it's coming. Bret, last question on this, and then I want to get to your conversation with Rob Bradford and Roger Clemens from the podcast this week. How foolish will you feel as a hitter when you turn around and you snap and you explode at that umpire behind the plate, and then you go, that's the BS horse, what call, and you go, I challenge the call, and you know that it was a ball and he called it a strike to ring you up, and it turns out he was right, you were wrong. How embarrassed will you be when that happens?
Well, I'm not going to be embarrassed because I'm not going to behave that way.
But somebody's going to.
No,
it's a meme just waiting to happen.
You think going in, it's, wait a minute, I have a challenge here. I don't have to get mad at the guy that made a mistake here. All I have to do is challenge it. All I have to do is challenge it. There's no reason to get mad. And then I have that coy, wry smile when I'm right,
smirk,
and just kind of look at you like, I'll let you know. Instead of, I'm not going to put myself into position. Obviously, if I snapped and got angry, I really think I know that was a ball, and then to be fooled, maybe my head moved on that ball. I'm not going to put myself in that position. My brain's going to say, that's not even close. I can't believe he called that a strike. But I've already preset my actions to say, oh, just do this in a poised manner. I'll just tap my head, smile at the umpire, and wait for it to come back. And when it's a ball, I'll just go, like I said, I'll give you that, I'll let you know, wink. So then I'm never putting myself out there for scrutiny. There's no reason to argue with a guy when I've got the power in my hand. I've got the power to challenge you. So there's no reason for me to get animated and upset, because if I'm that if I'm that committed and I'm that sure where emotions would come in, well, all I have to do is tap my head and say, oh, let's challenge it. We'll see. And then we get the answer. Instead of going into this theatrics and then being wrong. There's no reason to do that. Why put yourself through that? We get scrutinized enough as athletes. Why the hell do I need another scrutiny? I just want to be that guy at the end of the year that his percentage of challengers was in the upper echelon. Like, oh, when he challenges one, he's usually right. That's the reputation I want to get, not a guy that's challenging everything and always wrong.
Well, but I'm going to miss part of it because it's a less of a reason for your brother to go out there and act like a maniac and argue. I mean,
yeah, you're taking that away from the game.
We take away some of the emotions out of the game, and I don't like that.
Yeah, you're taking the Earl Weaver days. You're taking the the Lou Piniella throwing
Aaron
the bases.
Boone.
Aaron Boone, modern day. You're taking that away, and I think that's a part of it. When you buy that ticket, that's part of the entertainment value that's going to go away with this strike, with the human element being taken out.
All right. This just popped into my head. I've never asked you this before. You ready?
Yeah.
Be afraid. Be very afraid, because Sue Boone's going to get mad at me for asking this, but I don't care. I'm going to ask you some. I'm going to go rapid fire with some managers and their ability to snap and just let it all hang out.
Okay.
Screaming, yelling, going nuts. And I'm going to ask you to rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 if they're very, very best arguing out there and being animated. You ready?
Well, the old school are going to be better because they let it fly. New school, we don't.
Well, don't ruin my little new idea right here.
They're more poised. Okay. Go
Okay. Lou Piniella, scale of 1 to 10.
10.
Davey Johnson, 1 to 10.
Once he got going,
Lou's the
9.
standard at a 10.
9.
Billy Martin,
10.
Earl Weaver,
10.
Remember, Lou is our gold standard at 10.
Oh, Earl Weaver's every bit of Lou.
Okay, they're both 10s right there.
Yeah.
Aaron Boone.
Modern day 10.
No, not modern day, all time. We don't have modern day hitters in the Hall of Fame and old school hitters. It's all 1. So if Lou's at 10 and your brother is the biggest nemesis in baseball because he's the one who's always on television and John Boy sees him screaming and yelling.
If Earl Weaver's at 10.
What's Aaron?
6.
Really? You're going to go that high?
6, because Aaron really doesn't want to argue.
No, I know
really
he doesn't.
He's out there with a clear mind. I'm going to reason with him. I'm going to get this done. Weaver went out there with a vendetta. He
went out there with bloodlust in his eyes.
Lou went out there knowing he was just letting it go. He didn't care. Aaron actually, he cares. He doesn't want to argue, but then just something in his subconscious just goes crazy and he can't handle it anymore.
But I've never seen
when we argue, does the same thing. It starts out as a normal conversation and the passion just rolls back in, and it's a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old going at it.
But I've never seen your brother with bloodlust in his eyes.
Oh, no, he gets it. He gets it.
When he's arguing with the umpires, I've never.
Yeah,
have you seen him he loses control?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Compared to Lou,
yes.
I mean, I've seen
him
I
gave
animated.
him a 6. You're not comparing him. I gave him a 6, and I gave Lou a 10. I gave Earl Weaver a 10.
I give your brother a 5.
Now, and if we're going to do that, I think Davey Johnson, because he picked his spots, I'd put Davey Johnson with Aaron.
But I could never see your brother giving someone a forearm shiver to the chest the way that Pete Rose did. I can never see your brother screaming at somebody.
Oh, he gets close.
Bad.
He gets close.
No, but I've never seen him lose control like I've seen some other managers.
Well, because he's somewhat of a normal person.
Correct.
Yeah. And he wouldn't allow himself. But no, he's that passionate about what.
No, I know he's passionate. I know this is not a measure of passion. This is a measure of maniac tendencies. When Lou lost it, and he's kicking dirt. But Lloyd McClendon taking the base and throwing it. I could never see Aaron do that.
Earl Weaver, Billy Martin, Lou Piniella, they were known for that. So that was kind of their thing too. So there was a little bit of acting involved. Yeah, a little bit.
So with your brother, and I can't wait for the season to happen because every time it happens, I always get a bunch of text messages like you do. For your brother, for Aaron, I think when he loses it, he doesn't lose control, and he actually is trying to prove a point, which is the reason why he is really more like Bob Boone than we want to give him credit for, because his sense of right and wrong is so big and so clear cut.
He's exactly like Bob Boone.
Yeah, when he stands out there, and he's trying to show the size of the strike zone and he's drawing on the dirt. I don't think that's to show anybody up. I think that's because he's that 8-year-old who wants to prove the point that, no, you're wrong and I'm right. I don't care. I know I'm right.
This is why. Right. And this is why. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Which means, and Sue's going to get mad at me. He is such a black and white person, knows good and bad, right and wrong. He's almost a superhero when it comes to him arguing where other guys are out there. They just lose control and they lose focus, and they're out there arguing because they're doing it with fury in their eyes. And I think Aaron goes out there doing it with justice in his mind.
Justice, but yeah, he gets a little carried away, and I've told him that. Quit getting thrown out of that many games. Come on, do you really have to get thrown out? Do you really have to argue about everything when you know you can't argue balls and strikes, and you
Well,
continue to push the envelope?
well,
So I've got a different take to it.
Well, I love the fact that he gets fined and then baseball uses the video of him getting thrown out of a game to promote the next one, and he still has to pay a fine for that. That's my favorite part.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part. All right, enough about that. You sat down and talked about the Red Sox. Speaking of the American League East, with Rob Bradford from Baseball Isn't Boring podcast. What were your takeaways?
What he's seeing on the ground, and I think this is becoming a problem for the Red Sox. The Bregman signing, Rafael Devers being the third baseman, their star, and one of the best offensive players in the game. It seems clear cut from the top. What's my best team out there? Well, Devers is your DH, and you put Bregman, who's won Gold Gloves. He's a third baseman. He's a better defender than Devers, just the way it is. But that's not how it works, especially with star players. If he's a mediocre player, you play where you're told. But this Rafael Devers is a guy that signed a $300+ million contract. He's the Red Sox superstar. He's one of the best offensive players in the game. And when I saw his press conference saying, I'm the third baseman, I thought when they signed Bregman, there was an understanding amongst parties. Now, to Alex's credit, he's had a ton of success, postseason, World Series championships. He's had great years personally in his career. He's coming with that attitude as, hey, I'm here. I'm just here to win, and I'll play wherever. You want me to play second? He knows he's a better defender than Devers, but he's not making a big deal about it. He's taking it like a seasoned, mature, veteran guy and really looking good in how he's handling this. Whereas Devers is looking like, nope, I'm playing third no matter what. I think this is where not Joey Cora, Alex Cora is going to earn his money. This is where managers earn their money. Is you've got a disgruntled employee who happens to be your best player, and you've got a great player coming in who you just paid a lot of money to, who is the better third baseman. How do I massage this to make it? Because I need Rafael Devers coming to the ballpark with a smile on his face and wanting to play baseball because he's my best offensive player. I need him to be my best offensive player. This is going to be up to Alex Cora, his relationship with Rafael Devers, to find a way to make everybody happy as one cohesive unit. And the example I gave to Rob was I had this one spring training, I think it was 1994, where we signed a Tony Fernandez. He just passed away recently. But Tony came over. He was a Gold Glove shortstop with the Toronto Blue Jays. At the time, we had a Barry Larkin at short who was in his prime. Nobody was moving Barry from short. Tony came over. He had his blue glove, his Blue Jays glove. He would only take ground balls at short. Davey Johnson was the manager. Kind of made it clear that, Tony, you're going to play third this year. Tony wasn't having it. He said, I'm a shortstop. I only play short. Shortstops have egos, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Tony had won some Gold Gloves, and he was playing short. It was really uncomfortable, and it was actually kind of entertaining to watch because I was the second baseman. So I'd be turning two during batting practice. I'm turning two with Tony and with Barry. I know Barry's the shortstop, but Tony refuses to take ground balls at third base. Now, whatever massaging, and I've talked about Davey often on this podcast and on what I thought of him as a manager. I think he's probably the best technical manager I ever played for, as far as massaging personalities, knowing personalities, and interacting with different personalities to get a great result. Somehow throughout that spring, he found a way to make it okay for Tony to come in, play third base. Tony ended up being our third baseman. We went wire to wire. That was the strike year. Tony was absolutely tremendous defensively at third, had a really good year offensively, and ended up being one of the favorite guys in that clubhouse. Whereas early on in spring, nobody knew what to make of it. Tony wouldn't talk to anybody. He was angry. He was disgruntled because he wasn't playing. By the end of the year, we'd tease him, hey, you're a pretty good third baseman. And he would just laugh. And he was embraced by that clubhouse, where at first nobody would talk to him. He wouldn't talk to anybody. So I think I give a lot of credit to Davey, whatever he did to get him to buy into the fact that for us to be the best we can be, you got to play third base. And I think that's Alex Cora's job now, is to find a way to deal with these personalities, with these egos, and get everybody to come together final. And that has to happen on opening day. So I wouldn't want to be Alex Cora right now. I think he's in a tough spot, but he's got a relationship and relationships I don't know about in that clubhouse. One of them being Rafael Devers. It'll probably all work out, but right now it's going to be a sideshow for the immediate future.
And there's nothing like having a sideshow in Boston where the media just doesn't really fan the flames of things that go on at Fenway Park.
Right.
So,
that's part of it.
Yeah, that'll be fun. All right, that's going to wrap up our podcast for today. Boone, you happy?
I talked a lot today, and I
you
talked
you didn't make much sense.
I mean, look at me trying to talk layman and explain it. You got what you got for me today.
I thought it was pretty good. That's going to do it for the Boone podcast. Who do we have coming up on the show?
Who do we have? Come on, refresh me. You know these things. Oh, we've got Sean McDonough, who just finished up that USA hockey with Canada. I was there for all the fights. He was in the booth. I want to get his perspective on that. I've known Sean for years, obviously celebrated broadcaster in his time. But let's be honest, I want to know what it was like being there, what you're hearing behind the scenes, these fights, how electric was it? What was it like listening to our national anthem getting booed? It'll be interesting. He's our next one. I believe he'll be out next Tuesday.
There you go. That's the Boone podcast for today, everybody. See ya.